Today we're going to be putting ourselves in the shoes of one of the main characters of which you picked of one of our favorite horror films, who in the end used the Traumometer to see how terrifying of an experience they truly had. So grab your flashlights and prepare for spoilers in today's film, Lights Out. So we're going to be covering this movie from the perspective of Bret. At first glance, he seems like just another cool boyfriend in the horror movie that doesn't really have any idea what's going on.
Who said anything about boyfriend?
But lucky for him, he doesn't even quite have the boyfriend status in the relationship just yet.
It's been 8 months.
Really?
So much so that he's not even allowed to leave one sock over at her house, which in most cases would warrant an argument, but as we will see throughout the rest of this movie, Bret's not the normal guy whenever it comes to a horror film. I mean, come on, he just wants to leave his sock there, and that will be his goal and motivation for the majority of the movie. You would be amazed on how far he's willing to go to get that one sock in the drawer. So of course Bret has to leave with his sock.
So close.
And then the next day he gets a call from his girlfriend, Rebecca, saying that she has to go up to the local school because her brother Martin
You know you had a brother?
has called for some reason. So of course, being the good guy that Bret is, he decides to take Rebecca up there and begins to learn a lot of stuff immediately about Becca and her entire family.
My dad ran off when I was 10, did not come
Of
back.
course, starting off with she has a brother, her mom is super depressed, Martin's actually her half-brother, and her stepdad apparently isn't around, and just all of these things, and the entire time Bret's just standing in the background like, I don't, what is this? Why am I here? What's going on? But he's got to get that sock in that drawer. And it's through what Martin says during this little meeting while Bret's in the background that he would have heard a little bit about the strangeness that is going on. Because most children don't really talk like this in cryptic form.
This is why you left, isn't it?
And after this, Bret continues his role as the chauffeur as he takes Martin and Rebecca back over to their mother's house, and instead of acting the way that he's dressed as the super cool guy who doesn't care about anything, he definitely seems to care, even wanting to go in and meet the mom and being shut down very fast because, well...
She's crazy.
But I'm sure from Bret's perspective, that's just a excuse from his girlfriend. So while he sits in the car waiting for at least Rebecca to come back, instead there's a ton of stuff going on. He's not sure. He's just told, we're leaving, we're taking Martin with us. And they drive home, and I'm sure it was probably quiet in the car because he keeps a lot of the thoughts to himself until it's just him and Rebecca for a moment, whenever he can really speak his mind and speak the truth of the situation and ask her the question,
Are you doing this to help him? Or to hurt her?
And I find this interesting because that's something not everybody would say, but typically somebody that either has problems with their own mom or no longer has their mom. And it's clear that he strikes a chord with her, and we can tell that Rebecca is not just trying to help her brother. And then Bret gets told to leave. And as far as Bret is concerned, it's just another normal night, except he's had this argument with his girlfriend. Until the next day, whenever he gets a phone call and she needs a ride, whenever he pulls back up, she says, I want you to take me back over to my mom's house. And at this point, we start to see a bit more of Bret's character, because instead of being mad and driving off, like, he wants to confront the situation and actually talk about what happened instead of skimming over it. And even after he gets an apology, he even goes farther and says, you need to also apologize to Martin. And just before they leave, Bret finally gets a little bit of what's actually going on.
Who's Diana?
Which, of course, up to this point has made a lot of appearances, but Bret hasn't been anywhere around for any of them. And I'm sure that there was a little bit of talk of who Diana is and maybe some hidden trauma that Rebecca had in her past, but it seems pretty clear that he's not freaking out at all. I don't think she even mentioned what happened last night to Martin and herself. And so of course he's given the job to stay downstairs and just watch out for the mom to return. And this house clearly has something going on, because even somebody as cool as Bret seems to be a little freaked out just from sitting in this dark room. And of course, there's reason that he should be scared to death, but he doesn't even see it. But what he does see is the mom pulling back up into the driveway, and so he runs upstairs to get Rebecca, and he hears a bunch of commotion going on, not really sure what it is as he opens the door, and she just falls to the ground, don't know what's going on, and just skims over it because, well, his one job is, hey, when the mom gets here, we've got to leave, and he's focusing on his one job, so they've got to get up and get out of the house. And luckily, they do think to grab all of the stuff that they need as they get out of the house, and of course, he's asking questions like this.
I was attacked.
And by what?
Because he doesn't know anything about what is going on. He just really wants to get at least one sock left at her house. They begin to look at all the stuff, and of course, none of this makes any sense to Bret. He just flat out comes out and says,
How about I just listen? Because I still don't know who Diana is.
which, yes. Finally, somebody just come out in the open and say, please explain to me what's going on. And just before he finally gets an answer, Martin shows up. And of course, the bigger picture makes complete sense why Martin would show up at this exact moment. But to Bret, none of this makes any sense. And even instead of sticking around waiting for an answer or anything to explain who Diana is, why Martin's here, why he just looks so tired, he even offers to go and get food for all of them.
See what?
And so surely at this point, after Bret gets back with food and they're both scared to death and have all of the lights in the house on, he's probably seriously just wanting to know who Diana is.
She died.
Because they don't want to eat, they just want to go back over to their mom's house and get all of this settled. Why don't you just tell Bret what it is that's going on? But instead, they're going to get it directly from their mom and just have her explain a little bit about who Diana is and what's going on. So we have them sitting down at this table.
Can you tell us about Diane?
Questions begin rolling out, accusations begin to come forth that everybody's crazy, and Bret's just in the background like, right, all of y'all are crazy.
You sound crazy!
This all sounds crazy.
This all sounds a little
There's
crazy.
a dead woman in this house.
Because the very little that he actually knows about their mom is what she said earlier.
She's crazy.
Your mom was in a mental institution when she was younger?
Yeah.
So why in the world would he trust anything that she has to say about Diana?
She's my friend.
And so if I were to take a minute to step back and kind of put myself into his shoes, what I would really be thinking is that she switches into this other personality and becomes harmful to anybody that is around. And so that's why he's trying to calm the situation down before there's a switch in their mom and she becomes Diana. And I think it's further emphasized with what Martin says to Rebecca shortly after this in their little conversation that Bret would overhear in the background.
She's our mom. She needs us now more than ever.
That it's the mom that really needs them and needs their help. Not just anybody would stay around and especially stay over to help both of them, but it's clear that Bret cares a lot about not just Rebecca but also Martin, even going as far as to help them make sure all of the lights stay on and that they're never in the dark at any point. Probably assuming that they just have a lot of trauma in their past from their mom and Diana, and it's this conversation that really solidifies how good of a guy Bret is and how much he really cares about Rebecca.
You must think we're all crazy.
You know, I don't think that. You can be this way around me.
He just wants to help. He wants to help get their family over this hump, which kind of re-emphasizes to me that he knows what it's like to have a broken family. And he doesn't want to see it happen to this woman that he loves.
I'm not going anywhere.
And it's through this devotion that he can finally convey how much he really cares about Rebecca to Rebecca herself. And she says those magic words that he's been wanting to hear this entire time.
The bottom drawer.
He's finally got a place to put his one sock. Gets up, he realizes that the power is out, goes outside to the street. Sure enough, the whole property has lost power. And so he just comes casually walking back into the house, probably not wanting to wake anybody because he knows they all need to sleep, until he hears the banging on the door and he has to run down the hallway and realizes that Rebecca and Martin have been locked into the basement stairwell, not even aware that he's in any danger at all. But as he's trying to get the door open, he sees a flash of something out of the corner of his eye and shines his light over there, and of course it disappears. Believing that it's the mom, he has no idea what is fixing to happen. As soon as he gets tossed by who knows what, he realizes, I need to stay in the light. Even if it's just a little light, it gives him enough to be able to get up off the floor, get his feet, and get his wits back about him as he tries to figure out what to do next. But of course, this is a horror movie, so he can't just stay in the light the entire time. But he does break horror law. Instead of crawling back scared to death, he runs. He gets up and runs as fast as he can out of the house. Yes! That is until, of course, he gets chokeslammed in the driveway. Just before he full-on gets dropped by Diana, he does the smartest thing. I don't know how many horror characters would be able to think of this. His car is right there and it's got lights. But against the dismay of Rebecca and Martin, Bret is able to get away. And I hope by now you've already realized that he's such a good dude. He's not just going to run away.
I'm not going anywhere.
He goes and gets the cops and sends them inside to get Rebecca and Martin unlocked from the basement. He tries to explain to them that they need flashlights, and he makes sure that he is still in the light. And after hearing a bunch of gunshots and loud commotions and not sure what is going on, it seems like it takes him a little bit of time to get his courage to run up there, and he does it at just the perfect time. Gets in the doorway, sees Martin, and grabs him and doesn't let him go back in, but they run for it. And he tries to get Rebecca to go with him.
You want to get Mom!
That's the whole reason that they're there. He understands that, and he's going to protect Martin however he can. And it's at this point that this movie could have taken a drastically different turn if he hadn't have done that. If he'd have said, okay, you stay out here, stay in the light, and I'm going to go help Rebecca, he probably would have died. Martin probably would have got captured. Like, everything would have spiraled out of control. And it comes down to the moment whenever Bret and Martin are sitting outside, not exactly sure of what is going on in there, until they hear a gunshot and a scream. Bret holds Martin and says,
I'm here, bud. I got you.
The scene that would have been inside would have been a lot for anybody. But Bret brings them all together, and they go and they sit down, and even whenever it seems like maybe not everything has been dealt with, he still reassures them, we've got each other. We can handle whatever we need to. Bret's a really good guy. We know this by now, but he's also a very good horror character because he breaks all of these different stereotypes and actually lives and sticks with it throughout the entire time. And on the Traumometer, I've got to give him a 3 for what is going to happen next, because from the little experience that he had with Diana and with everything that was going on, we know that he's going to be strong, we know that he's going to stick it out, and that he's definitely going to help Martin and Rebecca, who would have scored much higher than he does with his 3, but it's just going to be something that takes some time. So if you haven't seen this movie, you need to go and watch it. As an electrician by trade, of course, the entire time I'm on the edge of my seat trying to think of all the different ways that they could have fixed the power, that they could have had all the flashlights, that they could have had some way to actually deal with Diana. And also be sure to subscribe to the channel, because I do put out the community post asking which movies that you want me to cover this way and what character from that movie that you want me to cover. Be sure to leave a like on the video because it helps greatly. And of course, if you like the video, why would you not leave a like on the video? Huh? You'd have to be crazy to not.
You sound crazy!
And so with all of that said, go and watch Lights Out. Y'all have an extra blessed day, and I'll see you in the next one.